And Harry know perfectly well every single thing they do is monitored by the press. The idea that they would do something on the day of trooping the colour, I mean, it's pretty silly anyway, because firstly, I mean, it is a clash of a sort. Secondly, I mean, what was done seemed just silly. We know that in March, Meghan launched American Riviera Orchard, which is her lifestyle brand. We know that she sent some 50 50 jars of strawberry jam to some of her pals, influencers, you could say. And I mean, she had a few endorsements, but this wasn't really very impressive. There weren't many A-listers who said how wonderful it was. What's so odd is that she did anything on the day of trooping the colour at all. Doesn't make any sense, because we only know because Nacho Figueras, who is an A-lister, he's been called the David Beckham of polo, and he's a pal of Harry, and he posted, and what was odd was that the photograph had dog biscuits and also raspberry jam, which is very strange because, you know, you can see the headline, Sussexes send raspberry to the royal family on day of trooping. And I mean, it didn't make any sense. And apparently on the packet, it said, well, on the jam jar, said 2 of 2. Now, if she's only going to send 2 out, what on earth's the point? If, on the other hand, you know, she was just testing it with a friend, she should have told him not to post it. It isn't PR or makes no PR sense. But I mean, this is silly. It's perfectly true that American Riviera Orchard, very cumbersome name. This is a sort of TIG too, because the TIG was her blog, which was very successful before in the days of Suits. That's a long time ago now. And I mean, it didn't make any sense for them to do anything on the day of trooping the colour at all. I don't think it's been thought out, because you couldn't think that, you couldn't. This makes no public relations sense. It made it was totally sensible that she launches a lifestyle brand. They've got to do something. They've not done that much. And certainly if it coincides, for example, with cooking and entertainment program for Netflix, of course it makes sense. And it made sense she sent jars of jam, and it would have been appropriate, I'd have thought, if Oprah, say, had issued an endorsement, and Oprah certainly didn't. There weren't many A-listers. 2 or 3 names, that's all we had. And the facts are that if the Sussexes want to make an impression in the United States, and particularly in Hollywood, they need A-list support, and they're not getting it. The other thing is that to do anything on the day of trooping the colour, well, it's ridiculous. But what one notices, if you go back years, the Sussexes and the royal family, always a tradition in the royal family is that when there's a birthday, or when there's an engagement, or whether someone is doing something that is special or of significance, or they're traveling abroad, whether it's Pakistan or whether it's Ireland or whether it's the United States, and I'm mentioning 3 on occasions when the Sussexes did things that would distract from the then Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, now Prince and Princess of Wales, were involved in duties of one sort or another. The Sussexes have never cared about the royal, what you could call this protocol, that you don't have a direct clash. But this makes no sense at all, and they are not in a position where they could, from a public relations point of view, say, you know, we do this, we do that, people will pay attention. People will pay attention simply because they know the media keeps an eye on every single thing they do. They don't necessarily like it, but they can't avoid it. They know who they are, and they know that there is this big rift in the royal family that couldn't be much larger. So it just didn't make sense they did this. It's silly. Meghan would not have been advised to do this by any of her public relations consultants if she had consulted them. So, it's very, very odd. If she just sent a friend, which appears to have been the case, and he is an A-lister, just some produce, she should have asked him not to post it, because otherwise it clearly makes them objects of mockery. Well, I can't quite make out what the case is because, from a public relations point of view, this is something of a joke. You're not looking at anything substantial. If she'd really pushed raspberry jam and dog biscuits and wanted to make a big thing of both of those on the day of Trooping the Colour, this would be perfectly consistent in the way they've behaved in previous years when there have been important days for the royal family. But on the other hand, it's quite weird, considering the pressures the royal family is under, considering Trooping the Colours, the official birthday of Harry's father, who is battling cancer, and since this was so significant that Catherine was able to watch the parade from the office in Horse Guards and also appear on the balcony, and that she is undergoing preventative chemotherapy for cancer. So you can't make sense of what the Sussexes have done. They should just have been quiet. So far as Trooping the Colours concerned, and Harry, this is, of course, the King's official birthday. The important thing was that Harry was in contact when King Charles turned 75. But what was equally significant and worrying is that it doesn't seem to have meant anything, because subsequent to that, when Harry was in London recently for the commemoration of Invictus at the 10th anniversary event in St. Paul's, we had the ridiculous situation where a spokesperson for him said that the king was too busy to see him, and we've subsequently been briefed by a palace insider that some recollections may vary on this, that this wasn't the case at all. And also there seems to have been a contradiction as to where he should stay in a palace, and he didn't seem to think that was appropriate, so he chose a hotel. And that was, so I'm afraid the fact that they spoke, which was obviously a good thing, or when the king was actually was 75. The whole point is, it's not just by your words you should be judged by your deeds. And I can make no sense. We've had all sorts of reports with Harry's visit when he did come over. Of course, he came over, as we know, when he heard his father had cancer, and no doubt sincerely, but on the other hand, he only spent reportedly something in the region of half an hour with the king, and again the optics of that were rather strange. So it all seems to, whether or not there are posts on Father's Day or Mother's Day, I don't think is necessarily the point, because the palace have taken the view that it's only, they haven't been sending wishes or good wishes when Lilibet was 2, or whether Harry was 39, or when Meghan was 42, when they had recent birthdays. The line is, though it certainly wasn't consistent in previous years, you did tend to have a greeting put up usually, I think. This is the line that if they're not working royals, so the palace wouldn't send greetings. But the whole point is not what is done or not done when it comes to putting little posts up, but how sincere, when there is a contact, how sincere that contact is. And unfortunately, King Charles's 75th, we had this weird situation subsequently when Harry came over recently. Quite extraordinary that he and King Charles were so close in London and yet apparently so far. And of course, there are reports the King saw David Beckham and could perhaps have seen his son. Since the palace aren't recognizing on social media the birthdays of Harry, Meghan, and their children, or apparently don't seem to be, although they did or have in previous years on some occasions. I haven't got an exact list. This is something the media notices. It isn't something necessarily most people would pay much attention to. What people will pay attention to, greetings or no greetings, is the way the individuals concerned behave to each other. And that was put under the microscope when Harry was here quite recently, of course. And I mean, it was just very, very weird. We know that he has appealed or will be appealing on the issues of security. We know also that into next year there will be, or may well be, further court appearance. We also know that he talked about coming over, possibly periodically, to see his father, and nothing has subsequently come of that. So we will simply have to wait and see what his intentions are. The only thing that makes any sense at all would be if Harry, or even possibly Harry, Meghan, and Archie and Lily came over privately, that we didn't know they were coming, and that we didn't know they'd been here. And what I think caused a problem when Harry came over, when he heard that the King had cancelled, was, of course, he went on Good Morning America, and he didn't reveal what was said, but what he did say was that illness could bring a family where there were problems, and the royal family is certainly one of those, together. But I don't think that was appreciated because, again, the relationship which with the Sussexes have with the media, it's far too close at times. The Sussexes object to the way the media covers them, but my goodness me, if you look at the way in recent years they've used the media, I mean, it's been ruthless at times. I mean, they are in a situation where every single thing they do is going to be picked up by the press, so she must have known that it would have been. If she didn't know that it would have been, she ought to have known. So they ought to, I mean, they know very well what the situation is. So if you do that and then the friend posts it, then it's called a launch, and she would argue it wasn't a launch because she didn't do much. Even so, it is a silly thing to have happened on the day of Trooping the Colour. They must be very careful with their PR, and sometimes, well, you do wonder. I mean, they've got a team that, and that's led to them doing more. We know they're working for Netflix, Harry on his polo series, though that's an elitist sport, and he'd be lucky to get a lot of people watching. I mean, apart from his fans, and of course Meghan on her program on cookery, entertaining and the like. But they need to, because if they were to lose the Netflix contract, where or what would they do next? And that's another issue.